President Bola Tinubu says is committed to seeing through positive reform programs for the country. The president made the commitment in his Independence Day broadcast to the nation. Among promises made by the president is the introduction of a provisional wage increment of 25,000 naira per month to enhance the federal minimum wage.
Reforms were necessary to place our nation on the path of prosperity and growth. On that occasion, I announced the end of the fuel subsidy. I am attuned to the hardship that have come. I have a heart that feels and eyes that see. I wish to explain to you why we must endure this trying moment. Those who sought to perpetuate the fuel subsidy and broken foreign exchange policies are people who will build their family mansion in the middle of a swamp. I am different. I'm not a man to erect our national home on a foundation of mud. To endure, our home must be constructed on safe and pleasant ground. Reform may be painful, but it is what greatness and the future require. We now carry the cost of reaching a future Nigeria where the abundance and fruit of the nation are fairly shared among all, not hoarded by a select and greedy few. A Nigeria where hunger, poverty, and hardship are pushed into the shadows and ever-fading past. There is no joy in seeing the people of this nation shoulder burdens that should have been shared years ago. I wish today's difficulties did not exist, but we must endure if we have to reach the good side of our future. My government is doing all that it can do to ease the load. I will now outline the path we are taking to relieve the stress on our families and households. We have embarked on a several sector reform to stabilize the economy, direct fiscal and monetary policy to fight inflation, encourage production, ensure the security of lives and property, and lend more support to the poor and the vulnerable. Based upon our talks with labor, business, and other stakeholders, we are introducing a provisional wage award increment to enhance the federal minimum wage without causing undue inflation. For the next 6 months, the average low-grade worker shall receive an additional 25,000 naira per month to ensure better grassroots development.
Now, news reaching us now says the election tribunal sitting in Nasarawa State has sacked Governor Abdullahi Sule of the All Progressive Congress. It has described Umugadu of the PDP as winner of the 18th of March 2023 governorship election in the state. We'll bring you details of this in our subsequent bulletin. Now, for a conversation on Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary, we are now being joined by a former Federal Commissioner for Information and Culture, General Ibrahim Haruna. I want to say thank you very much for joining us here on Newsday.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon. Nigeria at 63. A lot of people ask, what are the gains so far? And is there a cause for celebration?
So far, our gains are underlined by the fact that in our national anthem, it is underlined that we are seeking for peace and unity. And our fundamental objectives of the principles of state policies in our Constitution underlines the fact that the welfare of the people is the cardinal objectives of governments and their policies. I think over the 63 years, people who do not have the history, because it was discouraged for many years, will know that Nigeria started at independence with 3 regions, then progressed to 4 regions. Subsequently, we have the conversion of military coups from 1966 and political election upheavals. In the 63 years, we have emerged with 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. We have emerged with governments for the various states and the Federal Capital Territory in certain circumstances considered as a state. But when we look back, we'll find that over the years, our children grew without shoes, our soldiers and police and other security services were non-existent. But we have created and trained them to face our national domestic security threats, as well as the external security threats. And we have contributed to security operations of the United Nations. I think the fact that we are still united proves the point that we can improve more with our economy so that we can solve the issues of poverty, lack of education, inadequate health policy for the people. We'll wage war against insecurity and generally joblessness. I think 63 years, although we have not moved the country as a prime mover or leader of the black race or Africa, we know that we have the capacity, we have the competence, we have the resources. It is up to us to organize and provide the necessary impetus for the people to develop. Of course, we have threats to the achieving of all this. Most of these threats are varied. They are as diverse as we are diverse in nationality. But first and foremost, I think we have held the pride of being a sovereign people with a sovereign state, and we have struggled to make our nation a proud place where there is no oppression, there is independence, and we're managing our diversity, because wherever there are differences in values and differences in opportunity and differences in perhaps perceptions of self-worth, there is always to be some kind of threat. But these threats must not lead to violence where people fail to sit, negotiate, and think out of the box and provide a solution to them. And I think in 63 years, we have done things that some countries or nations have taken hundreds of years and are still battling with the same problems. Problems of self-interest, domination, desire to overpower. This brings us to our consistent problems of corruption in Nigeria, And we are solving that. We have created institutions, which I believe with proper alignment, reorganization, political education, we will solve these problems and arrive at a time when all Nigerians will feel that they're equal to the task, they have access to improve on their skills and endowments, and that the national wealth is not cornered by a few, and they are not supported by a few who are in a position to put things right, but fail to do so because they have perhaps their own interest. And of course, this interest raise conflicts between those in authority, among those in authority, and among the citizens in general. Good governance must be the foundation upon which peace and security and unity should be built on. I wish our country continuous progress.
Very well said, General Haruna. But I would like your assessment of the president's speech. What would you say were the highlights for you? Did his speech inspire hope and confidence in the face of the severe economic challenges we are facing in Nigeria?
Well, I'm still delving into the speech, but what I gather from it is that he is tackling the economic problem and the labor relations problem. And there is hope because there is discussion, there's sitting around the table, there's rational evaluation of the options for solving the problem of labor and the large gaps between the various segments of the Nigerian society. I think from the highlights of one wants to absorb is that the government is proactive, it is listening, and it is new to finding the ways of solving the problems. The problems themselves are not new. Corruption is not new, and one doesn't quite understand what really is the situation with respect to the oil market, or what is really existing in the central bank monetary policies and education. We are hopeful, and I think the renewed hope seems to have started the race line from the proper perspective. And that is why we have hope that another 60 years of independence will not leave us like this. But the 63 years we have experienced, and we are where we are because we have been who we have been. And we have to change some of our characteristics. And that cannot come about without proper political induction, redirection, leadership, and quality of the character of those who are engaged to oversee public wealth and public good.
All right, sir. A section of the youths are completely unhappy with the state of things in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, they say that the economic situation that they are facing is overshadowing the reason to be grateful, to celebrate, and to be patriotic about Nigeria. Now, we all know how Nigerians are feeling about the current economic climes and the cost of living shooting up by the day. What do you have to say to Nigerians that are feeling unpatriotic at 63 because of the current economic hardship For some of them, they say it's never been this bad before.
Because the youths are very subjective. They don't know how bad it has been. They don't know when we as school children in those 50s went barefooted, had no provision for feeding in school or for conveniences. I think that if we are all subjective, I'm an octogenarian now. I was 21 when I lined the parade at Northumberland Avenue in London as a cadet from Sandhurst to become an officer. And my group, along with others, got commissioned into the very turbulent years of our political life from after independence. I think that we can only advise that we should be patient. We should appreciate where we are coming from. We should appreciate how it has been. The Nigeria of today has been bad because of certain poor execution of government policies. Of course, we have seen very prosperous years when the oil was discovered as our major export earnings. We have come from where granules and cocoa and rubber were our major earnings. So the economy of a nation will go up and down depending on trade and the world market, and of course depending on how the assets are being applied and used to promote the economy and employment. So many factories came up in Nigeria at one time when we were prosperous. We had assembly plant of trucks and vehicles and cars. We have the textiles were booming, so on and so forth. So we have had good times and we will have bad times. We must prepare for the bad times when we're in good times. And I think with the renewed hope the new government is talking about, we will reorganize public policies, particularly to do with finance and trade. I think that the youth should appreciate that the youths of today, they are not in their 20s and 30s as we were when we started in 1960, or even at the time of our civil turbulences. We had governance of the states, of leaders who are at the age maybe 20, certainly not in their 30s. And they should understand and educate themselves and stop lamenting. Bring up entrepreneurship and purposeful contribution, and ensuring that there is also purposeful and equitable distribution of the national wealth. We at our old age are also complaining because we look back and say, well, there isn't a general provision or effective health care, for the people in general. And not retired generals or admirals can afford to charter an aircraft and go on a health clinic outside. And not all of them, not many youths today are ready to make these sacrifices to work in their institutions to make sure that there is equity, there is progress, and there is sanity. And corruption begets corruption. And if they partake in it and not shout out in order that we can clean up the society, they want to ride the back of corruption and poor leadership and hope to be prosperous. All they seem to be seeking for out of impatience is to have their own turn by turn. I think my turn and their turn policy cannot subsist with a nation that is groaning and hoping to solve and build a better society.
Well, thank you very much, General
I think we should all be
Haruna.
patient, make our contributions. Thank you.
Well, while we are asking the youths to be patient, and while the president is asking Nigerians to be patient and to endure, he's been silent, on exposing and sanctioning those that have benefited from corruption. For instance, we do not know the so-called cabal that have benefited from the oil subsidies scam. So I'm wondering, is it really possible to fight corruption without punishing those that benefited from it? Can there really be justice in that situation?
Well, we know that if the present conditions persist, there is no justice. That is why there is an outcry that there should be justice, which means people must be brought to book. In certain jurisdictions, those who are caught with caught for cheating the public, for stealing and for corruption, they're not allowed to live to enjoy it. After all, it takes all to promote security. It takes all to promote cleanliness in the society. But people cannot be making an outcry, there's corruption, when they are benefiting from it instead of making the right cries. Yes, but the right cries does not mean going to burn the assets of the nation and attacking and terrorizing everybody. You don't destroy your assets. At the end of it, you promote the gains and markets of your tormentors. I think we should encourage our youth. We are not saying be dormant in your patience, but positively contribute. And I think one of the steps we had taken during our time is the National Youth Service Corps and the National Orientation departments in the Ministries of Culture and Information. We must build. But in parallel, build the Boy Scouts. We were Boy Scouts in our youth, but today we don't see the participation or the interest of our youth partaking in leadership programs that makes them good citizens of the country.
All right, sir.
I think it takes all to participate in security and in development, not just the youth. The old ones have served their time. The youth must have their time. But the present leaders must have a good vision and be dedicated to the objectives they are elected to attain.
All right, sir. This current government have always spoken about the fact that we need to be patient, and also they've spoken about the fact that we need to hold on and things will get better. But in the face of all that is going on right now, a lot of people are questioning that the government is preaching one thing and acting in a completely different way. Cost of governance is still very high in Nigeria. While people are groaning in pain and in hunger, we still see government officials still being given fat bonuses. We still see government officials still being paid outrageous allowances, and people in Nigeria are seeing all this happen, and yet the government is still insisting that we should all be patient, that we will need to all cut back on our expenditure to be able to fit the climb and the time, while those in government continue, as they say, business as usual. What do you have to say to this disparity we see in the modern Nigeria today?
What I have to say is, let me just say it. I think we are all hypocrites. We like to hide our heads in the sand. The fact is that this government has not even settled down. It has not settled down as having a concrete leadership of the country, and yet see the courageous steps they have taken. the issues they have taken in how many months? From May. We're not even in December. We're challenging them over all the ills we knew that was happening while we are there. We were around as people when governments or governors were giving themselves pension of 5 houses, so many staff on government pay when they have been engaged only for 8 years, and you have generals and permanent secretaries and others who, if they were not corrupt, cannot live a balanced life today. Why are we expecting what has been built over 16 years of corruption, of insecurity or imbalances in the society? This is why we can campaign.
Haruna,
and ask
forgive
people,
me for interjecting.
Let us be patient.
General Haruna, forgive me for interjecting, but the last I checked, this is a continuum, talking about the APC government of the last 8 years spilling into this particular government. And like the president said, that he's just continuing the good works of the former president, Buhari. So when you say we should be patient, Nigerians have been patient and we've gotten nothing for the patience in the last 8 years.
Sorry to interject. You have not been patient. You have not been patient. You have not been positive. You are attacking the manifestation of government that has just been taking seat for under 6 months or thereabouts. What I'm saying is that we are hypocrites. Why are we criticizing this government as if it's only this government that has had the task of tackling corruption? After all, when the military were in government, people were shot for indiscretions of maybe 5 naira.
General
And we have
Ibrahim
circumstances
Haruna.
now. Look,
General Ibrahim Haruna, well,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you for your very interesting, point of view. It's been a delightful discussion, but unfortunately we are
Thank
out
you.
of time. Former Federal Commissioner for Information and Culture, General Ibrahim Haruna, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.